Tributes have been paid to Mikhail Gorbachev,
Mikhail Gorbachev.
Mikhail Gorbachev.
Mikhail Gorbachev.
Mikhail Gorbachev.
the last leader of the Soviet Union.
The last leader of the Soviet Union.
Russian media reports have announced his death in the last hour.
Mr. Gorbachev is credited with ending the Cold War without bloodshed, but he failed to prevent the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Gorbachev, the last leader of the Soviet Union, as of August 30th, has passed away. And whether you're from the West or the East, you'll see him as two completely different people. Either he was a hero in freeing the USSR from communism, or he was a traitor to the Russian people. The hot topic now is, what did Gorbachev himself think of the new Russian state? And is he actually against Putin's invasion of Ukraine? Also, was he really banned by Ukraine from ever setting foot in the country? My name is Harris, and this is Remapped. This video was made in partnership with NordVPN. For those who don't know who NordVPN is, you're living under a rock. Not Iraq, a rock. Not that rock, this rock. A VPN essentially allows you to change your location to anywhere else on Earth. NordVPN is the leading VPN on the market. It has a very affordable price and it comes with a huge variety of benefits, like the threat protection, which comes free in one of the plans. Threat protection is essentially an antivirus. It destroys any viruses on your computers that you accidentally download off websites, and with the VPN itself, you can change your location to anywhere else on Earth. No messing abouts, no advertisements to unlock the VPN itself. It is a one simple touch button that will enable you to change your location. It enables you to secure your IP address, so if you ever get IP hacked, people can't actually find out where you're from. If you're interested in purchasing a membership, you can actually use the link in the description and also the code HarrisT3 in the checkout in order to get yourself anywhere up to 68% off. So please do use the link in the description. It will help me immensely in producing and making these videos. Now, on to Gobi. Gorbachev had been the first and last Soviet leader to be born in the USSR, all of his predecessors being born before the 1917 revolution, making him, at the time, fairly young. Born in the district of Stavropol in a rural locality, Gorbachev would live his childhood days as the humble child of a farming family. Gorbachev would become increasingly successful in climbing the Communist Party ladder. But why? Why was someone who wasn't as hardlined as the previous premiers from a peasant background so damn successful? Well, for one, he was educated and thought of as smart, he never really fraternized with women, and two, he impressed the hell out of Soviet leaders in Moscow. Most of these Soviet leaders, who at the time happened to go on vacation to the Northern Caucasus, fairly close to where Gorbachev was.
Because he was the youngest in a Politburo whose average age was well over 70, and because his immediate predecessors had been nearly dead men walking. And here I have a picture of one of them, Chernenko, who could barely breathe toward the very end. They sort of propped him up in front of a voting booth.
A lot of Western news outlets are spewing this idea that Gorbachev being the sole defeater of the Soviet Union. But did he really end the USSR? How accurate actually is this? Well, what's for certain is that Gorbachev, from 1985, starting with his Anti-Alcoholism Act, began to change and reform the Soviet Union to deal with its era of stagnation, starting from 1964. He aimed to accelerate technological growth, introduce glasnost, a part of that being press freedom. In 1988, he delivered a striking blow to the Communist Party by curtailing the power of the communist apparatus, but reforms exasperated problems which were already there, leading to shortages in a plethora of things and a huge economic crisis which his successor Boris Yeltsin did jack all to solve.
To last a few weeks. After that, scenes like this will make her nervous. Each week, she spends up to 400 rubles on food. Her husband brings home 12 to 1,500 rubles a month, a little less than $15.
Nationalism had been a second issue, beginning in 1986 in Kazakhstan. Then you had the border issues of Nagorno-Karabakh between Armenia and Azerbaijan. You had troops massacring rioters in Georgia, Ukraine wanted independence, and the Polish Solidarity movement. Essentially, Gorbachev had helped in letting the genie out of the bottle, and refused to send the military to crush these movements. He most likely chose not to do so to prevent a massive Russian civil war. Although it's easy to say, the Soviet Union would have lasted longer weren't it for Gorbachev, but could it have? I guess we can never really know, unless any of you mans have got a time machine and decide to assassinate baby Gorbachev. Once again, a lot of news outlets are bringing the poor man's death into Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Which you only don't have because you filled it full of freaks in the first place. Is that about right?
You know what? In 2022, Russia will invade Ukraine.
News outlets are claiming Gorbachev, who then was a 91-year-old man desperately fighting for his health, was in total opposition to Putin's war. This is a blatant lie and another Ukrainian scapegoat. Not an actual goat, you know what I mean, like a Ukraine scapegoat.
It is absolutely true that because of Putin's war in Ukraine, we have pressures on the cost of living.
For one, he's not publicly commented on Russia's invasion at all. To be frank, I think he's more worried about was more worried about his own health. The individual who claimed Gorbachev was upset was Benediktov, the longtime editor of the radio station Echo Moscow, basically a massive critic of Putin.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the...
He actually hadn't spoken with Gorbachev and instead just gave his interpretation on the matter, so there's that. Also, it is worth mentioning on the basis of having a balanced argument that Gorbachev's interpreter for almost 40 years had actually claimed that Gorbachev was traumatized by the events that were happening in Ukraine, and apparently that it really crushed him emotionally and psychologically. So that is a more convincing argument on what Gorbachev actually thought of Ukraine, but once again, this hasn't actually come out of the words of Gorbachev, so I'm just letting you guys know that. Here's what Gorbachev has said in the past about Ukraine. In an interview, he's accused the US of arrogance over its treatment of Russia at the end of the Cold War, blaming an American desire to build a new empire for the disputes of NATO and Ukraine. Even huger, Ukraine had actually banned Gorbachev entirely from ever setting foot in Ukraine after he came out in support of Russia's acquisition of Crimea in 2014. Gorbachev responded as like, okay, it's fine, I didn't really want to go there anyway. What a legend. Gorbachev had actually told the Sunday Times he would have acted in the same way as Putin had he been leader. He also accused the US of rubbing its hands with glee over the end of the USSR. Gorbachev had also accused the West and NATO of damaging European security by expanding its alliance. No head of the Kremlin can ignore such thing, he says, adding that the US was attempting to mold a mega empire. In the past, he's also shown his support for Putin's campaigns in Georgia in 2008, which saw a Russian invasion to retake disputed territories. He claimed Georgia provoked the conflict, but I'm not really here to comment on whether Georgia did instigate it or not. This isn't what the video is about, but what we get from this is that Gorbachev seems to have his full support for Russia's overseas campaigns, or at least a lot of support for it. So now let's have a look at his thoughts on Putin, the man himself. Let's have a listen to this interview he gave in 2011.
Putin inherited a very difficult situation from his predecessor Boris Yeltsin. Putin did a lot of useful work to preserve Russia and to consolidate the Russian state. Even though he made mistakes even during his initial years and later, but he succeeded in something very important. And so I think that it was perhaps understandable that during that initial phase, he used certain authoritarian methods in his leadership. But using authoritarian methods as a policy for the future, that I think is wrong. I think that's a mistake. But of course, it's for us to sort these things out. We shall do that, and please don't even try to intervene in those Russian affairs.
He's also spoken out about his imprisonment of Alexei Navalny, claiming it is simply not acceptable when someone such as the anti-corruption blogger and politician Alexei Navalny is under house arrest for speaking out. To conclude, while Gorbachev did have his differences with Putin's domestic policies, on the balance he had been open about showing his support for Putin's foreign interventions. This isn't a time now for news outlets to use his demise as a political device to spin Gorbachev as being this superhero of the West and a total critic of Russia. No, that's twisting the truth. Sure, appreciate the good that he did, but don't over-celebrate it and parade and lie about things. Instead, his death is a reminder to all of us that although fragments of the Cold War are departing and leaving us, the impacts of that infamous era still remains. So anyway, I hope this has cleared a few misunderstandings about the last leader of the Soviet Union. My absolute condolences to his family, and politics aside, I genuinely think that he is a very sweet and kind man. And if you disagreed with any of the points I've made, or if I've upset anyone with these cold-ass facts, you can let me know how you feel in the comments section below, where I'll probably most likely ignore it. If you did enjoy, please like the video and stick around in the channel for a bit, as I'll be posting a full documentary about how the US and the USSR battled over the contentious island known as Iceland during the Cold War. Use the link in the bio if you want some wicked deals at NordVPN. And with all that silliness out of the way, long live the tomatoes. See you in the next one.